When it comes to superheroes with impressive rogues galleries, you don't have to look much further than our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The old webhead has amassed one of the most varied set of bad guys over nearly 60 years of comics, and they've all caused him plenty of trouble along the way. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is the 10 most powerful Spider-Man villains. Number 10, Craven the Hunter. At first glance, Craven the Hunter isn't anything too special when it comes to the power department because, well, he doesn't have any superpowers to speak of. When you get right down to it, he's just a man who shouldn't pose any significant threat to a superpowered hero like Spider-Man. That said though, Craven is anything but powerless, and he's not like your average man either, as he's in possession of a special elixir given to him by the voodoo priestess Calippo, which enhances his senses, slows his aging, and improves his strength. It's a sort of cheat to be sure, but it enables the already gifted and ruthless Hunter to take on the world's most dangerous game, Spider-Man. Hell, in his most famous story, Craven shot Spider-Man and buried him alive in a grave where he remained for 2 weeks. During that time, Craven took over his role and did some, let's say, very un-Spider-Man things. When it was over, Spider-Man rose from his grave and found that Craven committed suicide. His task complete, but he wouldn't remain dead for long. Number 9, Scorpion. In the beginning, Mac Gargan was an ordinary private dick hired by J. Jonah Jameson to find out just how Peter Parker was able to get such good pictures of Spider-Man all the damn time. When that ploy failed, Jameson enticed Gargan to take part in an experiment that forever changed him into the supervillain known as Scorpion. He was outfitted with a special suit which gave him superhuman strength and a prehensile tail, but he also gained a sort of scorpion sense, similar to Spidey's own precognitive abilities. While the suit offers him increased durability and strength that rivals his own greatest foe, Scorpion's real power lies in his tail, which is like a Swiss Army knife of pure death. It can fire electricity, acid, poison, it can be used as a clubbing weapon, and he also has a pincer-like grip that he can use to tear through webbing or whatever else might get in his way. The costume might be a bit silly, but don't let it fool you. Number 8, the Lizard. As we all know, the Lizard is a deeply tragic figure. He started out life as one of Peter Parker's friends and mentors, Dr. Kurt Connors, who attempted to regrow his lost arm, but ended up transformed into a gigantic bipedal lizard who was intent on taking over the world and turning all of the people in it into lizard beings like himself. While this transformation makes him sympathetic, it also makes him equally as powerful. Spidey and Connors have battled plenty of times, but thanks to his reptilian DNA, the Lizard can heal from just about any wound. He's also super strong, comes equipped with razor-sharp claws, huge fangs, and a tail he can use as a devastating weapon. As far as medical side effects go, it doesn't really get much worse. He even ate his own kid once, the poor dude. Number 7, Sandman. Flint Marko was just a run-of-the-mill thief on the run from the cops when an accident that could only happen in comic books happened to him. While taking refuge, a nearby nuclear explosion exposed him to intense amounts of radiation while he was standing on some sand. The radiation coupled with the sand to alter his form, and when he first arrived on the scene, well, Spidey literally whipped out a vacuum cleaner and simply hoovered him up, but he has since transformed into a formidable villain. Sandman has the ability to completely alter his size and density, given enough sand to work with anywhere. This means that he can become a gigantic abomination capable of hardening his form to the strength of concrete. Likewise, if he's damaged, he can reform himself with nearby sand, which makes him pretty much immortal. Sandman, of course, does have a few weaknesses that can bring him down in a fight. For instance, water causes him to crumble apart, much like a sandcastle on the beach, and as mentioned earlier, he's scared of a good Dyson vacuum. But despite this flaw, he is easily one of the strongest villains to go up against Spider-Man. Number 6, Electro. A villain made of pure electrical energy isn't exactly easy to defeat, especially when they can travel via electrical wires and outlets all around the world. Consequently, battling Electro is always a nightmare for Spidey, since he can easily escape through wires, turn into intangible energy, and fire off lightning bolts. But fortunately, old Webhead usually has a plan to counteract this. Rubberized suits are usually the go-to, but when it comes to handling a powerful villain who is nothing but, well, pure power, there aren't many easy workarounds. Electro got a few upgrades over the years as well, and after some experimentation, his power level was increased drastically drastically, making him even more dangerous. He gained the ability to absorb and even create a limitless supply of energy, but more than that, he could manipulate the electromagnetic fields around objects to move them at will. These abilities enhanced his powers exponentially, making him an even tougher foe for Spider-Man to contend with. Number 5. Doc Ock. Dr. Otto Octavius is one of those characters who, for the majority of his supervillain career, didn't seem like a very threatening guy, but those tentacles should not be underestimated. They can do anything from carry him around, take him up and over buildings, throw cars, rip apart bank vaults, and even one time in an early issue, unmask Spider-Man. As a matter of fact, Doc Ock was the very first person to unmask our hero, proving that knowledge can be just as dangerous as brute strength. However, his most dastardly deed came at the very end of his life when his body finally failed him. Instead of dying like any other respectful fellow, he transferred his consciousness into Spider-Man's body and vice versa. He effectively killed Peter Parker and then took over his life as the new superior Spider-Man. Doc Ock, for a while, won. Number 4. Green Goblin. There are many lists on the internet that place Norman Osborn at the very top when describing Spider-Man's worst enemies. While it's true that Gobby should top lists like those, this list is all about power, and the Green Goblin's power isn't paramount above the rest. That being said, he's no slouch either, and thanks to the Goblin formula, he's incredibly strong and resilient. The only problem with that special sauce he made was that it drove him completely bonkers. His already impressive intellect was boosted to super genius levels, which coupled with his insanity to make him into a devastating supervillain. The Green Goblin's power doesn't necessarily lie in his ability to pack a punch or hurl a pumpkin bomb. It's more to do with his influence over Spider-Man's life. To put it more accurately, it's how much he's been able to mess with Peter Parker's life since he knows exactly who his true enemy is. Gobby's most significant impact came in the story The Night Gwen Stacy Died, in which the Green Goblin caused the death of Peter Parker's first true love. This not only shocked Spider-Man himself, but also readers at the time, and it went on to reshape the web-slinger's life from that point forward. Number 3. Venom. After being cast aside by Peter Parker, the Venom symbiote found a kindred spirit in Eddie Brock, making the two merge beings into one sizable threat, the villain known as Venom. When he first showed up, he terrorized Peter and Mary Jane, and regularly killed people in gruesome, horrible ways. While it's true that the character has morphed into more of an anti-hero these days, back in the beginning he was little more than a monster who was almost impossible to stop. Venom has all of Spider-Man's powers and then some. He knew everything about Peter Parker as well, and he used that information to upend his life. He is also an absolute unit, possesses greater strength, doesn't hold himself back in any way, and can literally bite people's heads off if he so chooses. Number 2. Carnage. If Spidey thought Venom was bad though, the symbiote's first offspring was even worse. After Venom helped free Eddie Brock from prison, it left a small part of itself behind, which bonded with the closest human being there, Cletus Cassidy, becoming Carnage. Eddie Brock was unhinged and angry, sure, but he wasn't a psychotic killer. The same can't be said for Cassidy though. He was a convicted killer who had no problem tearing his victims limb from limb, and with the power of the Carnage symbiote, that became far easier. The reason Carnage is more powerful than its progenitor has more to do with Cassidy's insanity than the symbiote's powers. Cassidy has no moral code of any kind, and killing for him is an act of joy and pleasure, which make him entirely unpredictable and, of course, dangerous. Granted, the ability to craft any edge weapon imaginable from the symbiote's mass doesn't hurt either. Carnage was so dangerous after he showed up, Peter ended up making a deal with Venom to take him down, and the two ended up working together. You know Carnage is a bad dude if it takes the combined might of two mortal enemies to take him out. Number 1. Marlin. Now, upon first glance, Marlin isn't all that threatening of a guy. He's a sharply dressed dude and doesn't compare to the likes of Venom or Carnage in terms of being a scary-looking, intimidating monster. Looks are, though, of course, deceiving, and Marlin easily stands above the rest of Spidey's rogues as the most powerful. And that's because Marlin is sort of an energy vampire from another dimension. He feeds off the energy of living beings, but his taste in this area tends to lean more towards superheroes than regular folk, and Spider-Man proves to be more than delicious a snack to turn up. Because of this, Marlin has hunted the multiverse, killing and feeding off every version of Spider-Man he comes across. When he fought the Spider-Man from Earth 616, he punched him harder than any other enemy he faced before, but that's hardly the worst thing he did to him. Marlin possesses unlimited amounts of stamina and energy, which helped him fight against Spidey for hours. In one battle, Spidey looked like he was getting the upper hand after their fight went all across the city, but Marlin turned out to not be damaged at all. He exhausted Peter, beat the crap out of him, plucked out his eye, and then ate it right in front of him. He's practically a goddamn Dragon Ball Z character.